It's a huge privilege to have with us to speak tonight Sharon Ament, and I think actually there are loads of sort of cross connections, but we obviously are working together on an amazing learning space on one of the projects, but we did some work with you at the Charterhouse. And actually, in the room are at least one member of the student body at Cambridge, who where we set a program about the Museum of Docklands in about 1984, so before it was opened, and the background to that was completely fascinating. Because what was revealed there was this plenitude of extraordinary incidents, like, the warehouse full of ostrich plumes, or indeed the coopers, who were a sort of very special breed, who had to look after the rum barrels, where you couldn't have anything like a candlelight, of course. So these were spaces that were painted white, so a little bit of ghostly light. But the telling of whether a barrel was leaking was all to do with tapping. So you begin to have this sort of vision of this blind, extensive space full of tapping as a way of kind of making sure that nobody was stealing, or like warehousing of a very specific. So, I mean, that's one of a million kind of incidents that I think are part of the richness that you're dealing with your great enterprise, which you've been undertaking since 2012. So over to you, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. What a night of serendipity. And in this very room are two people who were right at the beginning of London Museum in Docklands, or Docklands Museum as it was. So they know who they are. And I'm still getting rid of some of the things that they collected. Anyway. Thanks, guys. So I'm going to talk to, and we were talking before about how we have natural history in common, and we were talking, somebody else in this room and I were talking about London Zoo. So how funny how the world comes together sometimes. So anyway, I'm going to talk about London Museum, and of course the thing that's been preoccupying me and my team, many people, and 76,000 Londoners, because we gave ourselves a target of connecting with 100,000 Londoners, London Museum project. So I'm going to take you through this, and of course you can't be looking at this slide without noticing that our name has changed back to London Museum. We were London Museum all those years ago, and of course we have our own mascot, the animal that flies amongst us, often unseen, rejected by humans, and now part of our natural landscape. Love it or hate it, pigeons are here with us, like we love and hate London sometimes. So, let me tell you the story. And this time, my talk today is really about how we are learning that a marketplace makes a fabulous museum. And there's some characteristics about the marketplace, which I think are universal. And we didn't know this when we began, but I'll go back to the beginning of the story that involved London Museum. So some of you may know of the campaign to save Smithfield. I'm sorry, City of London Corporation colleagues who are in this room, but it was a bit of a rejection, let's say, when the judicial review found that Eric Pickles at the time declared that Smithfield Market should be of a certain height only, And this, of course, meant that commercial development of the late Victorian market in Smithfield, general market, was not available really commercially for development. And it was in July 2014, I was sitting in my office, just arrived almost at the Museum of London as the director, when a member of the city corporation's surveyors team came to talk to me and said, Sharon, we've got a bit of a problem. We can't do anything with this site, the general market. Do you think, would you move there? And I was like, what? But I was taken by the hand and shown the building, and after a lot of thought and a big survey, we said yes. But here you can see the passion that was around for saving those buildings. And I think that passion has really borne fruit throughout the years in which we've been working on this. And we opened the first phase of the building, our project, London Museum in Smithfield, in 2020, next year. Never said that before. So we've been thinking, what if? What if we made a museum? And of course we have a golden splat to help us along the way. What if we made a museum that was in Smithfield? And this, sorry about the kind of fuzziness of the slide, this was the moment we revealed that, yes, our site options appraisal panel, chaired by Evan Davis, with lots of luminaries on it, had come to the conclusion that Smithfield really would be the best place for London Museum. And here we have, of course, Grace and Parry declaring it to the world. And that set a whole train of action, and I'm not going to go through all the detail, but it will end up in this. The late Victorian general market and the poultry market, which was Victorian, but it burnt down in the 50s, and this is a post-war building, which is really rather magnificent. So these two buildings here, surrounded by all sorts of fabulous other buildings, and this building here, the annex building, which is a fish market and a cold store, is currently looking for someone to occupy it. So in all of this, there is no escape. You'll see images from our collection. This is one of them. We've got 7.5 million objects in our collection, ranging from skeletons of Londoners to photography like this, and with a whole load of other things in between. But there really is no escape from what we are facing in the world, whether it's climate change resulting in sea level changes, or in fact inequity, which might, here you have an image by Didier Mattock-Brown, who thought about the future of London. And here we have shanty towns outside of Buckingham Palace, that kind of sense of inequity. And it's up to us as a London Museum to engage with these issues and to think about the big issues facing society, which we all know about. And this goes deep to our mission. So we're here to enrich the understanding and appreciation of London and all of its people, past, present and future. This is our mission that has existed and is enshrined in the Museum of London Act 1964. And it really holds true, which is really rather marvellous. I think the important thing here is all of its people, very important for us, and past, present and future. So that interplay between our lives now and the past, and of course thinking about the future. But we've added this little phrase to it because we think it's really important that we must be a force for good in London, as London must be for the world. And my goodness, I think we feel that. Well, I certainly feel it now as we see what's around us. And when you think about being a force for good, when I absolutely am pinned to the wall, what does that actually mean, Sharon? It means being a museum, a hyperbolically engaged and connected and the most superb museum we can be for London. And what does that mean? It means bringing people together to think about history and other people across the millennia who are just like us, and to understand each other in a communal space, and to use the evidence that is around us to think about our world in a robust academic way and have fun at the same time. So this is London Museum, or the Museum of London, in 1976, when we moved to that wonderful space on a London Wall. Purpose-built museum, there we are, contorted because it had to change itself a couple of times. One, to accommodate the Ironmongers Hall, so we contorted around it. And then, I don't know why, the city planners thought that that great big throbbing road, as you can see there, will need a massive roundabout to stop anyone ever getting into the museum, but they did. So, and the interesting thing, of course, is that I really do not know how anyone got into the museum now. We have, bridges and escalators that work and things like that. How did people get in? The interesting thing, let's see if it says it here. Yes, this was the day before we opened. So the Sunday Times said this. And indeed, how? How was anyone ever going to get into that, to kind of scale the walls to get into the Museum of London? And of course, all around us, it's very different now, of course, but the whole of the central business district has grown around us. And why did I think that it was really important to move the museum, in fact, transform ourselves along the way, is because as the central business district grew around us, even though we're steeped in history in this location, it is just not a place for culture, for people to fall into a museum and experience it. So we are moving. Anyway, this is it. This is that impediment in construction. Amazing thing. And this is where we're going now, right in the middle of London, and or outside of the city walls for many, many years, and now on the edge, the west end of the city. And here we have the boundary with Islington. We're going to occupy those two buildings, and you can see it's a complex, the Horace Jones complex. The first two markets are here and there. That's the East and West Market, then the poultry market, then the general market. There was the fish market, an annex there with a cold store, and there was actually another market there. So a really innovative and massive scheme by the City of London Corporation, and I think that resonates today. But what we have found, and this is the banks of, we're on the banks of the Fleet River that goes down there flows into the Thames there. At some point up to here, you can just see the Holborn Viaduct. I think my MOLA colleagues who are in the room will be able to testify. That was navigable by Roman ships. So it kind of opens it all up when you think about. I think here is the Western cemetery, Roman cemeteries, and I know MOLA are finding amazing things just by Holborn Viaduct. It's in the development there. So it's an extraordinary place. And we have found that this location, so I'll go back to the first principle, connectivity to the museum. Because this was somehow, as a market, it drew people in. Roads lead to Smithfield, and of course Roman roads lead out of Londinium. It feels like this is a great gathering place, and I'm not a great exponent of psychogeography, but there is something about this space that feels like people have always been there, gathering there forever. So here it is in oh, I've forgotten when this was. This is a kind of very complex medieval layout, but all the roads led to Smithfield. And of course that was really important because things happened in Smithfield, or Smoothfield as it was known, outside of the city walls. So the city, as we know, super regulation, keep it all cool and calm, make loads of money, and let the wild hinterlands happen outside of the gates. It was all going on in Smoothfield, before we arrived. And of course, you know, you have people were hanged, drawn and quartered. And here's William Wallace, of course, not the actual William Wallace. There were martyrs of all denominations, so it was very equitable, that were killed here. And the Peasants' Revolt, amongst other things. And from 1132, the St. Bart's Fair, which was established to fund St. Bart's Hospital. So there's a really interesting economic model, and I'll come on to the economic model of the museum in the future. Here we can see the massive undertaking to create the markets and the railways that ran. So the Victorians had this enormous chutzpah and confidence in terms of wiping away the medieval street pattern, and this was just outside of, Smithfield was saved from the Great Fire, and you know that there's Pye Corner, which shows the wonderful golden boy of Pye Corner. And so it's an undercut, not a tunnel, and through this space, at the same time as thinking about a new sort of market, the technological possibilities were there for underground railways, electric lighting, and so on and so forth. So it was a very innovative technological development by the City of London. And it led to things like this, which is a cold store. And as soon as refrigeration was invented, all around West Smithfield, all around the market, came the opportunity to make even more money. And so with the colonies and connecting to our empire, we were started to import lamb and other frozen meats when refrigeration was invented. So here I think is one of the first ever refrigeration units, and basically it's a building that is a big fridge, and that with the engine block there, which had a very big chimney on it, and underneath furnaces, which would be sometimes powered by coal, but also from meat fat, and goodness knows what it smelt like. And this would churn through the cooling liquid in there. Anyway, the other great things about this site, of course, it's a place of going out. It was a market. Now it's a 24-hour area for fabric, one of the great nightclubs, I hope you've all been, in Europe. Used as a place for both trade, selling to the trade, but also for the retail as well. And here's a very early picture of it. And you'll see how we're developing it to recreate that almost. So I think some of the qualities of the pedestrianisation, the entrances, the buildings itself are just phenomenal as a museum. Here we have Hart's Corner, which was bombed in the Second World War here and had to be pulled down, and it was the site of a V2 rocket that killed a number of people, very tragic, and was rebuilt by the city. But the great thing about a market is it's a place for people to come together. It has multiple entrances. I'll come on to that a bit later on. It's a place for trading. And for us to inhabit, inherently inbuilt into that design is a kind of domestic, human scale place for interaction. And we will be creating an interaction between people and ideas and knowledge and sharing as much as for trading meat. Nice images there, and this is what it looks like kind of today. And we know that there is big change afoot. If you have read the papers, you will know that the market traders, the East and West market, will be ending round about the end, about 29, 30, and the market traders will be going to make a new Smithfield somewhere else. So that gives a whole new possibility as well. So we were thinking, what if we asked, if we did a competition where we asked a group of architects to come together, so Paul Williams from Stanton Williams, a small practice, Asif Khan, and conservation architects, Julian Harrop. And this has been something we wanted to encourage from the get-go, which is how can we use our project to build businesses and build reputations and spread the economic power of our project across London. Then we took over these buildings and we did a bit of museum stuff on it with these wonderful hoardings which connected to Londoners who are just about to be born. And this kind of sets the tone for us forever, which is we're all about London people. But look at those buildings there. When you walk past Smithfield now, do look at them. You will see the conservation work that has been quite phenomenal. And it's a useful reminder to me when I see those. But here we are with, I think this is in the 60s, you know, and I'll go back to this notion that markets enable the very essence of a museum to evolve. This is what we will be like. We will spread out into the street, and it really does begin in the streets. And so a market connects to the outside and to the inside. For a museum to be able to do that, it's quite phenomenal. You will be very aware of some of the big museums in London and perhaps the rest of Europe, which are like sometimes like fortresses. You go through a gate, you go through a neoclassical kind of entrance, you beat your way through. One I used to work in, the wonderful Natural History Museum, but that entrance is so small, albeit exquisite. You know, you've got to fight to get in there. Markets are not like that. Markets are get in, sell, get out. And this is absolutely phenomenal for a museum. So we're going to be facing outwards and facing inwards. We are hyper-connected, which is an extraordinary thing. The market, the live meat market, had cattle driven from all parts of the UK. You know, I cycle down the old Kent Road, and of course I go past the Dun Cow and the other pubs that were there. They represent the kind of vestiges of the stopping off places, the fattening fields for the cattle that came from all parts of the UK and even all the way from Scotland. So there were 1.5 million head of cattle. I think it's pigs alone. There were geese from Norfolk. They all came in. Imagine what that must have been like through the streets of London. It must have been absolute mayhem and glorious at the same time. So we're right in the middle. We go from being hidden behind a roundabout with a museum that people can't get into to being one that you kind of get drawn to psychologically through all these streets, and then you flow in and out of. We are so hyper-connected now, and of course with the Elizabeth line, this brings an absolute new opportunity. I often say we are 2 stops from Paris. Imagine that if you think about that. And one of my KPIs is that people, our friends in Paris, will get on the train and come to the museum. Messy edge of the city, really important. And all these concepts, we did a big research project with ACOM very early on in the project. So what makes a great part of the city? Messy edges. My goodness, we've got a messy edge. Smithfield is a messy edge. You know, you can, sorry, City of London folk, but you can sometimes skid on an old piece of chicken skin, you know, along the way. We kind of love that as humans as well, don't we? We love the visceral quality of a city, and we have that. Here's some images from Smithfield 150, which we celebrated in the museum with the market traders. It was a lovely event, and it really brought home to us how fabulous this place could be. We're a public space with great utility. So really built from the get-go as a public space. There are toilets. There's a toilet. It hasn't been open for a long time, but I'd like to get my hands on that public toilet. There's a rotunda. There's lots of amenity around the Smithfield space. So this is also very apparent, and it will make a great museum, great cultural venue. And the city's thinking hard about how it really brings to life those other buildings around us. And we didn't mean to do this, but we've kind of acted as a catalyst for the whole redevelopment. As I say, we will be flowing out onto the streets. We have up to 9 entrances, and we will be going right into the night. Another characteristic of this area is that it's 24 hours. With the market itself, which will exist until about 2030, and Fabric, it's a 24-hour place. So one of the things we've been asking ourselves is, how can we be the best museum for London? And the very simple answer is to be like London itself and to be more 24-hour. So we will stretch the bounds of opening times for museums. Watch this space. Certainly on a Friday and a Saturday, we will be open until 12 midnight. I do want a part of the museum to be open 24 hours. That is a stretch. And I do want us to open West Poultry Avenue at 7 a.m. So we have all these different spaces up and down. The great thing about a market is it's built with depots under the ground. So the public spaces get in and get out. The goods get in through the train, and we have a train line going between the two spaces, Poultry Avenue and General Market at the basement level, which is actually the grade level for in reality. Museum is about time, place, and people. A city is about made by people, and we're telling the story of London over time, from before London began. But also we're stretching London. London is a capital, and it was the edge of an empire, and is now, and was at the centre of an empire, is now post-empire. So the influence of London across the world is really important. When we thought about how we organise our intellectual framework, we took the buildings and we said, how do we make all of these work? So we've used a time framework, a time dimension, past time, our time, real time, imagined time, temporary time, deep time. There will be night time. There definitely will be tea time. There might even be bedtime. All of these big spaces means that we can flex and be different in each of those spaces. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we do that. The entrances are amazing, and we've been renovating them. And we've got up to, I think, in high days and holidays, if we opened every single entrance, there'd be about 9 of them. But in the General Market Phase 1, we will have 4 main entrances, which freaked our team out a bit when they said, how are we going to manage all this? Where are we going to do bag checking? And we said, we're not going to do bag checking. We are going to just welcome people in because that's how markets operate. We don't check bags when you come into a shopping centre. So how do we use the technology, the security technology, to help us welcome our visitors without that horrible impediment of a great big long queue? So loads of entrances, really important. And this is one of our big entrances, which is at the end of West Poultry Avenue. And there you can just about see the Temperance Cocoa Rooms. If I've got time, I'll talk about that. In the poultry market, we go deep into deep time down here, where we have our interactive galleries, temporary time and future and imagined time, and all sorts of things around that. And we've kept on asking ourselves, what if? What if we were really like London, as fast-paced as London is? This is a Nevinson painting from our collection. What if we had real time as a place where you could just come in and see big data now? And yes, there is a dog, and over there is the last bell cast in the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, and around it says, "We are London," and we will ask visitors to ring the museum open and ring the museum closed. And this, we hope, will be open from 7 a.m. and it will be a great meeting place. Going out onto the streets, as I've said before, we have this real opportunity to use our walls to inhabit the space and to encourage other organisations to come and join with us. So we want to, Asif Khan calls this the coral reef. All those green places are... Oh, they're ours, aren't they, Alec? Alec at the back, yeah. The ones that are white are for people to rent, shops and offices. But we don't just want to make it any old place. We want everybody who joins us to be tenants who want to think about and be part of London. And so I can't imagine, Starbucks would want to be there, because I don't think they're going to contribute much to that. But Film London might be, or a bookshop might be, or something else might be. And that's what it looked like inside. And we've been knocking in the spaces together and creating great images to start this new economic model of a museum. So how do we survive as an organisation? And we really think it's by being a place that lots of people want to be and lots of people want to work. We will have great shop, although it looks a bit like a bookshop. I love architects' images. They never quite have people in them, and they always go to their own interests. It will have lots of things in our shops. We're looking at how we can buy everything from London, so that's a really interesting thing. Our toilets and our restaurant, that's one of the restaurants, looking a bit primordial at that moment. Now it's very deciduous. So we have a tree in our restaurant, because London is a forest, a national forest. And our toilets, every toilet's different. But that toilet there will have images of the flora and fauna that inhabited London's bomb sites. And there we have an interactive children's space. So again, what if? What if we engage Londoners? Very important. 100,000 Londoners, we're up to 76,000 so far. Right from the get-go, all sorts of people. And then, now, really thinking hard, what if we engage with the big crises of the day? And of course, climate is a big issue, and we have made this museum very, very sustainable. So it's climate, absolutely. But there is a big crisis around trust and information and knowledge and evidence and truth. So we really need to engage with that as a museum. And then there are societal crises where people want to fight each other. They've been encouraged to fight each other. And we want to bring people together to understand that humans living in London for over 2,000 years, going right back to 6,500 years, are kind of the same sort of individuals with the same sort of problems, the same sort of loves, the same sort of desires and fears. And let's bring people together. So that's what we want to do. This is our recent history. We started in the Guildhall Museum and the London Museum, and we're going to open the next phase of our evolution in 2026. First, as I said, first phase. And that's our story. It's a kind of magnificent, and there's many people in this room who are sharing it with us. So happy to answer any questions.
Completely brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. No, fantastic. I think I can't wait. As a local, I can't wait for this to open. I mean, that 7 o'clock moment. I mean, at the moment it's White Cross Street for us, but wow, that's going to be a real draw. It's wonderful, the whole thing. So I'm sure that there are many questions. Please, there's a roving mic, so let's go with that.
Thank you so much for an absolutely fantastic talk, and really very exciting to see what's going to be around the corner. I have a question about the market. I love the way you talked about the market, and I love the way you're trying to bring the essence of the market into the museum. I mean, I'm one of those people that's very sad that Smithfield's being closed down. And I just wondered whether you're a bit concerned that that very special quality that having a livestock market, well, not a livestock market anymore, but a meat market in the middle of London brings to that area, and because it seems to be so much part of your story, and actually whether you're actively involved in the conversation about what happens to those buildings. Because, I mean, just to full declaration, you know, I'm a kind of a food-related architect, as it were, and I think retaining some form of, you know, live food hub in that part of the city could be also very much about sustainability in the future. So I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are.
So we love the market. We love the working nature of the site, whether it's a train line running through our basement. You'll be able to see the train and be on the train and look into the museum. We've kept the names of the spaces because that's really important to the story we're telling. And there's many, many more things about why we love this area and the connectivity and the kind of use of the area. We're great friends with the market traders. And it's my indomitable style to stick my big fat oar in. So I love this area and I'm very protective of it. So I think there's something very important and almost vital and special. And the City of London Corporation can do something magnificent with this and there will be many options which are mediocre, but we could do something magnificent. So I will be doing all I can to make that happen.
Thank you. Good to hear.
Maybe this is a follow-on, but about 10 minutes ago, you said something absolutely marvellous, which of course is what we all do when we're speaking, because we're not writing. And you said, the city is thinking. Could you say what that means? And are there people here who could represent what that means?
So the first thing that the city is really moving on is the use of the annex and the fish and the cold store. So it's the old fish market, which is directly opposite the museum. And there is a process where they are going out to market, as I understand it, and we are involved in that because whatever occupies the space opposite the museum is going to be integrally involved with us. So there is a very close relationship, and I think there are real innovative thinkers in the city who want this to be a new model for the public realm, for the economy of the city. So that's how I experience it from the museum perspective in relation to the plans that are happening in the city.
Are there people here who could speak to that?
There might be.
Please.
There might be, Gwyn. Oh, look at that baton being... got a little bit from you, Gwyn.
I think Sharon's right. We are thinking, and we are thinking about very creative, very sympathetic solutions for that building. And watch this space in the next few months will be trying to crystallise up a key part of what will happen on those buildings in the future will be informed by public consultation. And we expect everybody to engage with that. And the first thing I tell anybody approaching us, first thing you need to do is talk to Sharon.
Yeah, and I think, if you should take comfort from, the way in which we have worked with the city. I mean, we're close to the city, but work with Gwyn and the team there to create this museum. The potential 24-hour openings in the Temperance Cocoa Rooms, which is a magnificent part of the museum, or, the kind of way in which we are connecting with the streets, the kinds of tenants that we have. Although, Gwyn, you've stopped us having a carpet shop and a carpet shop and, of course, something more familiar, and I don't know what you've got against carpet shops, but of course, betting shops and other things like that. But the carpet shops?
I'm not even sure what you're talking about, but I'll pick it up afterwards.
The condition of our planning application is we can't have a carpet shop. But there you go.
Oh, thank you. Oh, hello. Sharon, hello. Joss Stewart-Grunbar from the Cloth Workers. I just wondered, obviously there's a lot of emphasis on bringing tourists in the city. You know, the whole destination city is about bringing people to the city. But what have you got in mind in terms of reaching out to those who come into the city to work every day, the large number of people that are right under your nose and actually who ought to familiarise themselves with the city they work in and the history of it, and have the opportunity to be frequent visitors? Thank you.
So one of the key things I forgot to say was that we're aiming for 2 million visitors, so a big, hefty number, of which we expect people who work in the city to be a good, healthy proportion, and hence our 7 a.m. opening times. And so we know people are commuting through that area on the way perhaps to the city proper. And so we want to provide facilities for that. The other thing is, by being a free museum, we have the opportunity for people to hang out, to work in the museum, and all of that. And we kind of want people to do that. So it will become a place, I hope, where you'll kind of meet people for coffee, go and browse in our bookshop on the way back home when you catch the train from Farringdon. Bring your visitors from outside of London to come and buy something really valuable and useful for London, not just any old tat, and so on and so forth. So we really want to make this a part of the living life of London, and to really help it to feel different and a place that people really want to be. One of my illegal KPIs is that if and it is illegal, if I know we'll be super, we've made it when kids are bunking off school to spend time in the museum.
I really like the idea of the analogy of the market as a way of democratising the museum. And did you think about actually letting people coming up and setting up their own Museum of London?
Oh, not thought about that. But there is a whole load of... We've worked with a lot of people, a lot of communities, a lot of expert groups, and we know ultimately that there are potentially 10 million curators. 10 million people who live in London. We don't own we don't own every London story, and there are experts out there. Although I'm very passionate about academic rigor and the kind of insights that we bring from really hard thinking. But I think, there are equally experts in chicken shops or laundrettes or whatever. So I think there's a kind of range of expertise. I want expertise, not just any old opinion, because goodness knows there's a lot of any old opinion out there, but real expertise to help us stretch thinking.
Yes, my question has to do with your sort of educational mission. Mm-hmm. I have been teaching about museums, I don't know, for about 10 years. And within an architectural school, and one of the questions I pose to my students that then bring back their presentations to me is like, sort of who is in the museum and who is not in the museum. And this is one of the things I've also experienced with taking my own daughter to the museum as a teenager with her friends, that museums tend to be really wonderful and excellent with elementary school children, very small children. You see them everywhere throughout the museums in London. It drops off the cliff with teenagers. And then once they're at university, I've had to pay to get my students into the Museum of London to see one of their collections. And I've had to ask them for money. One of my students couldn't afford it and then didn't show up because the £8 or £10 or whatever per student that we had to pay to see one of your collections, was not affordable for the student, and I could not pay for my students either. So what are your plans for your educational mission from, let's say, age 12, 13 onwards?
There's about 1.5 million pupils in London, and our objective is to engage with all of London's young people, which is 24 and below. It's a really big ambition for us. Of course, there's a kind of structured approach to all of that, and I firmly believe that if you bring young people on a structured school visit, you've grabbed them whether they are used to coming to museums or not, want to come to museums or not. So that's really important for us, right at the early ages onwards. It's all about programming. It's about freeness. It's about, being open when young people are around. There is a big issue about, young people moving around the city by themselves independently. The issue is that they don't. They kind of stay very local. We need to attract people, put on the kinds of things that people want to come and see, and as I said, to make it a place where people want to hang out. So I think that's the key thing, and to make sure that our exhibitions and the big shows that are free, which is in the area called Our Time, will be compelling enough for people to want to come by themselves. There's all sorts of structural stuff around pricing, not pricing. Mostly we're free, sometimes we won't be. That's about the economic sustainability of the museum. And we were very pleased to be part of something called Culture Mile in the City of London, where we subsidised visits to cultural venues. And so it's a very good model, and I hope we can replicate that, whereby we were able to give small grants that enabled whole classrooms of people to come and engage with the cultural venues in the city. And it was very economically viable.
Thank you.
What would you say are going to be your biggest draws in terms of exhibits, things that you're showing? And related to that, are you expanding the collection as part of the whole programme? And if so, in kind of what direction?
I think the building itself will be we're kind of thinking of the building as the biggest object in the museum. And if we tell that story right, I think it's hugely charismatic, hugely compelling, whether you're kind of going down to see the vaults that we discovered, or going and looking at the train, or going ultimately to see, lying under that great big, Arup and TK Bennett roof, I mean, it's just kind of amazing. So I think that's going to be a big draw. And then, it's like things will appeal to different people. We haven't got in our museum a Mona Lisa, although some might say the Fatberg is that. But there's such a richness in the collection that connects with people and all their interests. I think, I don't think we have one big standout object. There are hundreds of thousands.
I really loved your presentation, especially the way you talked about bringing the streets into the new marketplace of the museum. And I was also really struck by the amazing engagement work that you've been doing. It's like no mean feat to reach 100,000 people. And I was just wondering, I think on the back of all the questions that have already been asked, how, for the people who maybe don't think that they can come to Smithfield and be drawn in, how does the museum go beyond this building project and go out to parts of the city to draw them in, or to realize that this could be a place for them? And how do you continue some of that engagement work with communities that are maybe spread out into the messier edges of London?
Well, at the moment, we're a bit obsessed with this building, so I kind of can't, we thought, we do all sorts of outreach work, more outreach work, but we just have not got the energy to do that at this moment in time. But we do have our fabulous Docklands Museum, which is really fantastic. And, we're now getting we'll be getting nearly 400,000 visitors to that site. So it's absolutely amazing. Fantastic digital outreach. And of course, in due course, we will have one undershaft, which will have Classroom in the Clouds, which will be mega. And so I can't, our energy is really on Smithfield at the moment. We will reach out. We will go beyond it. At the moment, we can't think beyond the walls.
Thank you so much. That's completely inspiring. As I say, everyone's please hang around, and I'm sure the conversation can go on. But it's now tantalizingly close, as you said, 1 year. So this is fantastic for London, and we all wish you the very best with what is an absolutely incredible project. Its complexity, its depth, and its resonance is wonderful. So thank you, Sharon. That was a wonderful engagement.